Well, often I'm asked about the Electoral College, and it is an interesting part of our election process in this country. And I am delighted to have with us today Tara Ross. She's authored a book entitled Enlightened Democracy, the Case of the Electoral College, and it is the second edition, forward by George Will. And a very timely topic and a very timely time to talk to her because former Vice President Al Gore attacks the Electoral College. So, Tara, nice to have you with us today.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. I can tell you when I was chairman of the Oregon Republican Party for 4 years, I ran into this a lot because a lot of people don't pay any attention to the Electoral College until about this time, you know, a few weeks out from a presidential election. And then what is it and how did it come about and why is it there? Is it fair? And all of those questions. But before we get into that, what was the former vice president's, what's he doing with this attitude?
Yeah, he came out and he said, you know, I used to be for the Electoral College and now I've changed my mind. I'm against it. I would suggest maybe he doesn't have the best credibility on this particular issue. And maybe we are better off looking to what the founders had to say about this. And of course, the founders thought that they had created a great institution. Alexander Hamilton said, if it be not perfect, it is at least excellent. They thought they'd done a really good job creating something for such a unique, diverse, big country as our own.
What is the purpose of the Electoral College?
The purpose of the Electoral College is to make sure that we don't have presidents that just represent one segment or one region or one state. We have presidents that have to pay attention to a wide variety of American people. In order to win in the Electoral College, you have to demonstrate your ability to win simultaneous multiple victories across many states, many different kinds of regions, large states, small states. And if you can't do this, then you're not going to succeed. The Electoral College is great for our country given, you know, Texas is not like Rhode Island. Massachusetts is not like Florida. There's so much diversity. We are not just one big group of people who are all identical. And the Electoral College ensures that presidents have to go out and learn about all of us instead of just camping out in one part of the country where people already like them and already inclined to like that candidate's views.
All right. With that in mind, and with our founding fathers looking at this, they were obviously trying to protect that so that there isn't a mob representation and
right.
the little person doesn't get represented. For the most part, it's made up of the Congress, members of Congress, and the 2 senators. Is that correct for each state?
Your number of electors is the same as the number of congressmen you have plus the 2 senators. So the electors are actually different people. But yes, that's how they determine the number of electors that you have.
Right. And I have been voted to be an electoral voter, but I never had the chance to cast my vote because we didn't get the popular vote. So some people think that it's still, in the end, not fair. How would you counter that?
It's not fair because of the winner-take-all system, you mean?
Right.
Well, look, it's like any other election. You have winners and you have losers. You know, I'm sorry you didn't get to be elector. I would love to be one personally. I've never been one either. But, you know, my home state's Texas. At the end of the day, there is a slate of Republicans. There are a slate of Democrats. And one of those is elected, just like when we have a governor race. You know, some people win, some people lose, just like when we vote for U.S. senators, some people win, some people lose. We have 51 different state elections, 50 states plus the District of Columbia in this country each and every presidential election year. Those 51 different elections determine who is going to represent our states. In the second part of our election process, the election among the states. So we have a 2-tiered election process. The first level, the first round of elections is purely democratic. Individuals go to their states and cast ballots, purely democratic. There are winners, there are losers. Then there's a second phase among the states. So we have democracy combined with federalism in this country. And the reason, again, as I said for that is because we want to make sure the presidents have to pay attention to the whole country, not just the region they already like or the kind of special interest voter that they already like. You have to demonstrate your ability to appeal to a lot of people.
All right. So if the Democratic candidate, as an example, wins a state, then the Democratic electoral voters get to cast their vote, correct?
Right. And I'm not sure people always know that these are different individuals. You're not expecting Republicans to go vote for Barack Obama. You're not expecting Democrats to go vote for Mitt Romney. These are different individuals. So again, in Texas, we have 38 electors. There are 38 Republicans. There are 38 Democrats.
Right.
And there are 38 completely different people for each of the third party candidates. So, you're not trusting somebody to go and do something that they would not want to do. Like,
is it possible that an elector could change their vote?
Technically, and it doesn't happen. It has never happened where it's changed an election.
Right.
It has happened roughly 20 times in our history. Okay, only 20 people, by the way, in our whole country's history.
Yeah.
And those votes have usually been cast to make a political statement. One example of this is in 2000, with all of the pressure put on the Bush electors, not a single elector from the Bush side deviated or changed their mind or cast their ballot differently, which was a big deal, I think, because there was a lot of pressure put on those electors. The one elector that did change was a Gore elector from D.C. She abstained to make a political statement about the lack of representation for D.C. in Congress. So now I'm guessing if her vote would have put Al Gore in the presidency, she would not have chosen that particular moment to make that particular political statement. And the faithless electors historically have been all that sort of situation.
Because it's possible for a candidate to win the popular vote but not win the electoral vote. And we saw that in the Bush-Gore election, and everybody thought at that point, I would assume that's why Gore wasn't thrown out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. As we go into this cycle now, these electors, I would assume now have already been selected because they usually do it during the state conventions, correct?
It's different in every state, but that's typically how it happens, yes.
Okay.
They're probably already selected by now.
All right. Do you think there's ever a chance that this will be re-examined, or do you think it's pretty much secure?
The Electoral College is actually under attack right now, which nobody really knows because it's happening in the state legislatures. A constitutional amendment, of course, would need the support of 2/3 of Congress and 38 states. I don't think anybody expects they can get that right now. So what they are doing instead is they have state legislation that they are asking a handful of states to pass. And what they want these states to do is say, look, California, Texas, whoever, don't give your electors to the winner of the state vote. Give your electors to the winner of the popular vote, the national popular vote. So 8 states, actually plus D.C., have already approved this legislation. Now, it's not going to be in effect this year because they are waiting for a few more states to join with them. They're doing this all through a contract that goes into effect when a certain number of electors, of states with a certain number of electors have signed on. The 8 states plus D.C. that have signed have 132 electors. That's halfway to their goal of 270. So actually, the Electoral College is in a little bit of danger. And this is why I wrote the second edition of my book, was to address this particular effort that is happening behind the scenes. Nobody has any idea it's happening, but they're really getting dangerously close to getting rid of our Electoral College system.
All right. Now, given what you said, if this sees the light of day, then those electoral votes wouldn't be cast until after the night of the election, until you know what the popular vote is.
Do you mean now, or do you mean with the system in place? Or?
Well, what they're proposing. In other words, if they're going to move it from the state vote to the national popular vote, you're not going to have that until the night of the election, and therefore the Electoral College couldn't vote until maybe the next day.
Well, if they do this system, it's going to be a huge mess because there's no such thing as an official national popular tally. So the way the legislation is written, they're basically taking the word of a designated state official in each state, an election official. But, there's going to be all sorts of contest about that. There's going to be lawsuits that say, well, you in Oregon, you had more time to early vote than we did in Texas. That's not fair. I don't like that. I'm going to file an equal protection claim because I think that violates my rights under the Constitution. All of these sorts of things are going to happen. And the end result is going to be you're going to have just uncertain election results. It's going to be hard to know what the national total is. Little disputes in precincts that were irrelevant before because they didn't affect the state outcome. Suddenly, if you've got one big national pot with everything thrown in, then it starts to become more of a big deal. So I'm actually kind of scratching the surface here. There are so many legal problems, so many logistical problems with trying to tally a national popular vote when there is no national system in place for that.
Well,
You just have the 50 states plus DC each doing their own thing.
Tara, it seems to me that those who oppose the Electoral College, all they have to do is create chaos and they win.
Well, yeah, that's what they're trying to do, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that there are at least some people who hope that if we get this system in place, it's going to be so chaotic,
Right.
there will be so many logistical problems that the constitutional amendment that was once so impossible will suddenly become a lot easier.
Well, thank you for taking this on and being a warrior to protect it. I commend you. And let me encourage our audience to get a copy of the book, Enlightened Democracy, The Case of the Electoral College, second edition by Tara Ross and forwarded by George Will. Get a copy. There's a picture of it on the screen. Check it out at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, and read this. If you don't understand the Electoral College, get a copy of this. Folks, we cannot allow this to get wiped out because this is what really is true representation is all about. Tara, thank you, and thank you for your passion. Keep up the good work, and keep us up to date. If you need more exposure on this from our end of the country, let us know. We'll have you back.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Have a great day.
You too.